2011, the group of 6 young Tanzanians got together and began hosting technology events. We were part of the team that put on Dar es Salaam's first bar camp, Dar es Salaam's first hackathon, and several other conferences that went along the way. And what ended up happening is that we kept meeting the same people as part of these organizing teams, all young Tanzanians involved in technology, but also passionate about making a difference in their country. And at the end of that year, the 6 of us got together and said, you know what, we really need to formalize this. And so over several coffees and sandwiches over at Subway, writing furiously on napkins, we finally came up with the idea of establishing a tech hub and naming it Kinu. It took us several weeks to actually decide on a name. We explored ideas of the hive, of the cannon, and what it really came down to is that we wanted to create a space. So within our context, the Kinu is a tool that is used for communal work and communal benefit. So we wanted to create this space where we could take people from the technology sector, people from academia, people from the finance sector, from the public sector, from CSOs, and grind them together to create solutions to local problems using our own energy, our own passions, and our own time. So we started writing off for funding, and we got our first round of funding from Google and the Indigo Trust. Found a space, built it out, and learned a lot along the way. I mean, the old adage that if you build it, they will come doesn't really work. It took, again, time, energy, and patience being poured into the space. We had to become what we wanted to see. It's not good enough just to build a space. You had to build trust with the community. You had to give more than you got. And over the 5 years of doing it, we had amazing successes, a lot of learnings that came out of it. And till today, I can look around the innovation ecosystem in Tanzania and in the wider East Africa and see what started off as seeds at Kinu, now blossoming into fully funded projects, businesses that are taking on the region, and just young people using their creative energy and passion to really do cool things out there. One of my favorite success stories to come out of Kinu is the Bongo Kids team. The co-founders all met at Kinu. They decided they wanted to create this wonderful edutainment product that has now gone from being sitting within our space to being broadcasted all over East Africa in multiple languages and actually getting funding from HDIF. They've now extended it into several shows that are doing not only the original math and science content for primary school age kids, but doing English as an additional language for preschool kids. Seeing things like that happen, that is really tapping into creativity, to the passion and the drive that we have here that utilizes Tanzanian animators, Tanzanian co-founders, together really shows that we can do great things. Technology is a tool that really relies on a lot of more offline components than we give it credit for. Innovation is something that in a lot of ways has become a buzzword. But what it represents on a deeper kind of level to me is the acceptance of saying we can do things differently. That not only is it something we can do more efficiently, more effectively, it is something that we don't necessarily always have the answers. And there might be ways and means of doing things out there, whether it is a product innovation or a process innovation or a system innovation that can have a bigger impact on the world we live in. I think that the first challenge that youth face in Tanzania in establishing new businesses is a lack of trust in the youth, first and foremost. we tend to look at youth as a problem that needs to be solved rather than an asset that can be utilized within society. Moving on from that, our ecosystem is largely fractured. We have organizations working in silos. If you look at some of the more developed innovation ecosystems out there in the world, what you see is more akin to a basket of eels, where you have your public sector and your private sector, your civil society, and your academia, and your startups, all mixing together, sharing benefits, sharing knowledge, sharing resources. We're still at a very early stage in this journey of creating an innovation ecosystem in Tanzania. And so what we have is organizations still operating within themselves. The knowledge is being held there, the resources are being held within these separate organizations. We are seeing more of a trajectory towards more conversations, towards more people getting together and sharing these ideas and sharing resources. But that's something that will come slowly. The third major challenge, well, actually it's almost a twofold, the first part is tied back to the issue of trust, which is the access to finance piece. That startup businesses need to have capital that is not risk averse injected to them. We have capital for traditional businesses. If you want to set up a factory, if you want to set up a farm, there are loan mechanisms you can reach out to. If you go to the bank and say, I've got an idea for a tech platform that will connect young artists together, they don't understand half of what you're talking about. So entrepreneurs and young Tanzanians are often forced to rely on the 3 Fs: friends, family, and fools, which can only get you so much capital. So the first part, the first part of this 2-part challenge series is the aversion to investing in what could be potential risky business ideas, so lack of access to capital. The second part, in which I feel is almost the more important one, is a lack of access to market. If you look at our cell phone user base, which a small percentage of that is actually using smartphones and has access to connectivity to the internet, unless you're thinking as a startup, at least East Africa wide, so you tap into our neighbors in the region, you have such a small market to try and monetize. So we need to look at a wider market. And that part of this is also opening up of our own mind frames. We look at places like Silicon Valley and try to emulate them and recreate them, when that is an example of a very unique, small part of the world. So we need to consider, when looking at these challenges, how do we contextualize it for our situation? How do we solve these problems in our particular situation? My first piece of advice for a young person trying to explore new ideas and be part of the innovation ecosystem is to know yourself. Know what you want to do. Know what you're passionate about. Understand your community. My second piece of advice would be to never be afraid of failure. It's one of those things we get stuck in a rut and stuck in a path and feel the expectations of the whole world and our families are on our shoulders and we need to make this happen. But there's a great value in knowing when you've given it your best shot and that it's not going to go anywhere. That's a learning process. Failure is a part of life. And only through examining those failures can you really understand yourself, what went wrong, and how to be successful.